Hey gang, how's it going? This is Nate on the Stone. Welcome back to my channel. And today we are talking about the death culture and what it's going to do to all of our lives. Last week it was reported that 17-year-old Noa Pothoven was euthanized according to her own wishes in the Netherlands. Holland legalized euthanasia in 2001, and actually according to Dutch law, people as young as 12 years old can be euthanized as long as they have their parents' permission. Noa requested to be euthanized because when she was 11 years old, she was sexually assaulted, and then when she was 14 years old, she was actually raped. In an Instagram post, she told her followers, quote, "After years of battling and fighting, I am drained. I have quit eating and drinking for a while now, and after many discussions and evaluations, it was decided to let me go because my suffering is unbearable. This is my decision, and it is final," unquote. Look, gang, I'm going to keep it 100 with you. I think that euthanasia is objectively wrong. I don't think that any one of us has the right to end our own lives because we don't own our lives 100%, because the source of our lives doesn't come from within us. It comes from outside of us. However, having said that, this video is not going to be a rant about how terrible a person Noa was, or how she should have been stronger, or how she shouldn't have given in to temptation and shouldn't have killed herself. Absolutely not. I can't even imagine the pain that she suffered with for the last 6 years of her life, being sexually assaulted and then raped. So I'm not going to sit here to pass judgment on her. That's a job well above my pay grade. And maybe I don't have to anyway, because it turns out that the initial reporting was wrong. Noa did request to be euthanized last year when she was 16, and the doctors turned her down. So instead, she literally just starved herself to death, refused to take any nourishment, whether that was food or water, and her parents and doctors decided not to force nutrition on her, so she died in her home in a hospital bed from malnutrition. Whether you agree with Noa's decision to kill herself or not, or whether you think a person has a natural right to actually end their own life, the bottom line is that the Netherlands can't be held responsible for her death in particular, right? Maybe this is just one of those inevitable tragedies that just happens every once in a while in life, and the silver lining that we should all be grasping at is that whatever we think of it, Noa is finally at peace, and no, sorry, that's bull. All of it. 100%. Sure, the Netherlands might not have specifically killed Noa in this circumstance. It might not have had her euthanized, but it has fostered a death culture that is still what led to her death. All the way back in 1981, the Rotterdam court actually created a list of guidelines for doctors in the Netherlands to follow to ethically perform euthanasias. And yes, I know I just said that euthanasia wasn't legalized in the Netherlands until 2001, but that law actually only just codified what had been common medical practice for the last 20 years. And these guidelines included: the patient must be experiencing unbearable pain, the patient must be conscious, the death request must be voluntary, the patient must have been given alternatives to euthanasia and time to consider these alternatives, there must be no other reasonable solutions to the problem, the patient's death cannot inflict unnecessary suffering on others, there must be more than one person involved in the euthanasia decision, only a doctor can euthanize a patient, great care must be taken in actually making the death decision. The prime requirement is the first one. The patient has to be suffering unbearable pain. And at first that was interpreted only to mean physical pain. But, in 1986, the Hague Court of Appeals ruled that psychological suffering as well as potential personality disfigurement also was to be included under the banner of unbearable pain, meaning, of course, that the number of potential people who could be euthanized was greatly expanded. And the result has been that, as time has gone on, more and more people have had themselves euthanized. Between 2001 and 2013, the number of euthanasians rose by 13%, and, according to a review published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2017, between 1990 and 2015, euthanasia went from accounting for 1.7% of all deaths in the Netherlands to 4.5%. What's more, the number of people who were not terminally ill, but who still had themselves euthanized, although still small, also expanded within this time frame. On top of that, not all the people who were euthanized actually gave their full consent. In 2017, it was reported that 400 people had been euthanized against their wishes, and that, furthermore, 1 in 3 doctors were actually on record saying that they would euthanize the autistic, people fighting addictions, and people with mental disabilities. And according to a 2015 story that ran on Breitbart, 650 babies, people who could give absolutely no form of consent, were euthanized every single year because, whether due to disability or disease, it was decided that death for them was better than life. Dr. Zeer Versluis, the chairman of the Dutch Pediatrician Association's working group on neonatal ethics, said in 1992, quote, "Both for the parents and the children, an early death is better than life," unquote. What this all means is that the Netherlands has actually created a death culture, a culture that actually promotes and pushes death instead of life on its people. And surprise, surprise, a death culture doesn't do anybody any favors. The first thing that a death culture does is that it destroys the idea of the intrinsic value of every human life. Now, if you're religious, this is a pretty easy idea to wrap your arms around. If there is a creator who created all life, that includes human life, which means that human life, just on the out and out, has some inherent worth to it because the creator made it. If you're a Christian, a Jew, or a Muslim, that idea is actually compounded because those faiths actually teach that man is made in the image of God. But you don't have to be religious to see the truth of this fact, because that truth can be seen in each person's uniqueness. Every single one of you guys watching, every single person in the world is unique. It goes down to the very fabric of our biology in every single cell, because nobody, either before you were born or after you die, will ever have your exact compilation of genetic material. You're literally one of a kind. That's a fact that's enriched by the compilation of every person having their own unique lived experiences that has gone into forming our ideas, our philosophies, our personalities, and our quirks. And now add to that, every person is actually rational. Rationality is a word that's been given kind of a bum rap because we've been trained when we hear that word to think of mathematics and logical syllogisms, but the word means so much more than that, and we can do so much more because we're rational. Because we're rational, we actually have the ability to choose. We have free will. Because we're rational, we don't just see and take in the world as it is. We can imagine other worlds, how the world might be, and then we can actually act to make those imaginings a reality. Our rationality gives us the ability to love other people, to actually choose to do what's best for them, even people who are complete strangers to us. All of those abilities stemming from our rationality, they're what separates us from every single other animal and living organism on this planet. A death culture kills that, saying that our lives are not intrinsically valuable. Instead, it says that our lives are only meaningful if we have certain things, whether that's our health, a prerequisite amount in our checkbook, a meaningful relationship, that dream job, whatever it is. If you don't have these things, the death culture says that your life is pretty much meaningless and worthless. In this way, it actually promotes functionalism, the idea that a person isn't really a person and doesn't really have much worth unless a certain amount of criteria in a list are checked off, and or you can do certain things, not just because you exist in and of yourself. A death culture also creates a caste system like they had in India before those evil British colonists came in and destroyed it, along with Sooty, but that's another story. If your life isn't intrinsically valuable, then that means that your worth has to come from somewhere else, somewhere outside of you. And, as I just pointed out, it'll probably be based on statistics, health, happiness, wealth, etc. If your life is missing these necessary ingredients, then that means that you have less worth than the people that do have them, which means automatically that your life, you yourself, are worth less than the people who have these things, which means that you get to be bumped to the bottom of the totem pole. And this postmodern death culture caste system does what every other caste system does. It destroys equality, and it takes away your rights. If some people are societally recognized as being worth more than others because of their health, their wealth, their happiness, or whatever, that of course destroys equality, where everyone is supposed to be equal under the eyes of God and under the law. Just on that basis alone, the caste system destroys equality, but in the death culture caste system, it's actually worse than that, because the death culture promotes the idea individually and amongst all of society that priority should be given to the people at the top and that the people at the bottom should actually be snuffed out. For example, back in 2014, the UK Telegraph reported that according to a poll, 1 in 10 Britons actually thought that the elderly should be rewarded for choosing euthanasia, going back to an idea first touted by British author Martin Amons in 2010, who said that to deal with the silver tsunami that was about to hit Britain, the elderly should be given a martini and a medal for going to euthanasia booths and signing up to snuff out their own lives. Equality? Barely knew you. Besides equality, this actually erodes rights as well, because all of our rights stem from the first inalienable right, the right to life. But if the death culture actively promotes the idea that people should allow the state to kill them if their lives become worthless, due to the functionalist definition of personhood and what it means to be worth something as a person, then the right to life is being eroded. And if the right to life is actually on a sea of quicksand, then none of our other rights are safe either. The third thing that a death culture does is that it gets rid of hope. I'm going to tell you guys something that you all already know.
The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it.
Wars, famines, plagues, invasions, natural disasters, again and again, these things have happened throughout history and are going to happen again in the future. But you know what? People survived through them. People waded through hell and got through on the other side. And the thing that got them through to the other side was hope. Hope that things were going to get better, that the bad times, the bad things that were happening weren't going to last forever. But a death culture destroys hope. It says that when whatever made your life worth living, whatever made your life valuable, when that is taken away from you, then that's it. Game over. Thanks for playing, but cash in the chips, buy the farm, and kick the bucket. It leaves no room for improvement, no room for the idea, the possibility that things will get better, or that you yourself will actually be able to overcome whatever it is you're suffering through. In 2015, for example, another woman, also from the Netherlands, surprise, surprise, was euthanized according to her own wishes because she suffered from a severe case of tinnitus, which she described as like a permanent train with squealing brakes. Her 2 children are now orphans because the death culture told her that there was no reason to go on living. In fact, there was absolutely no hope for her future. The only thing that can beat this, the only thing that can defeat a death culture is a life culture. A culture that actually recognizes and respects the inherent worth, value, and dignity of every single person alive and living today for the sheer reason that they are human beings, that they're created in the image of God, if you're religious, or at the very least, that they are genetic and subjective one-of-a-kinds that have reason and rationality, something that separates them from every other animal in the planet, and which allows them to do things that no other animal can do. Maybe there are some people who still aren't convinced by the arguments that have been made in this video, and they don't see any threat to equality and rights and hope and all the rest of it. Well, if those arguments aren't enough, then there's always the argument for self-preservation, because the thing about a death culture is that it never knows when to stop. It never has a red line in the sand where it says up to this point and no further. It always adds more and more groups of people on which to feed. Don't believe me? In 2012, Alberto Giobellini and Francesca Minerva made the case in the Journal of Medical Ethics, a peer-reviewed journal, for after-birth abortion, saying that since, quote, both fetuses and newborns do not have the same moral status as actual persons, the fact that both are potential persons is morally irrelevant, and adoption is not always in the best interest of actual people, the authors argue that what we call after-birth abortion, killing a newborn, should be permissible in all the cases where abortion is, including cases where the newborn is not disabled, unquote. Notice how we've gone from people who are terminally ill and babies who have some sort of disease or disability to now saying that just the elderly should be euthanized, and now just babies themselves, even if they're perfectly healthy, should be euthanized, what other groups are going to be counted as open season for euthanasia? And how long is it going to be until a group that we're in is going to be declared open for euthanasia? Well, what say you? How else is the death culture going to harm us individually and as a society? Or are all the things that I've said in this video worth the price if people have the self-autonomy to end their own life if that's what they really want? As always, let me know your thoughts, your ideas, your opinions down in the comment section below. Well, that about wraps up everything for right now, gang. As always, if you liked the video, whether you agreed with me or not, don't forget to show your support by giving it a like and sharing it on Facebook, Twitter, and all the other social media platforms. And if you like videos about the culture, politics, and religion, but from a different POV, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel and to ring the bell for notifications so that you will always know when I post new videos just like this every Tuesday. Videos you're not going to want to miss. As always, thank you for watching, for giving me a little bit of your day. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed to my channel. I appreciate each and every one of you. And I will see you all again here next week, gang, on top of the stone. Ciao.